How's it going? Welcome to today's video. We are going to be learning how to create a simple motion graphics template within Adobe After Effects that you can export to Adobe Premiere and use in your video workflow, or you can hand it off to a video editor. We're going to stay pretty simple today, but just hit on the basics of how this works. It's a really exciting and powerful tool, and I'm excited to get into it. Okay, so here in Adobe After Effects, we're going to go ahead and create a new composition over here. So I'll click right down here, composition. We can just call it comp 1 is fine, 1920 by 1080. We're going to use this HDTV preset that's already there. 10 seconds is probably too long. I really can probably do this animation in about 5. So we'll say 5 seconds, not worried about the background. We'll just click OK. So this creates our new composition. As you can see, the background is totally transparent. If that bugs you for any reason, you can definitely change it. Just by clicking here, it'll toggle that on and off for the transparency. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna create a really simple animation with some text. Say we're doing some kind of a documentary where someone is filming different people who are speaking. And so we're gonna create a little lower thirds graphic that has their name and then their title along with a little logo. Not really a logo, but we're just gonna use a placeholder for now. And we'll do that, and then we're gonna export it to Premiere with some cool options that we'll build into the motion graphic. So let's get started. All right, so now that we're within our composition, we can go to our text tool, and up here we can just click to start with some text. I'm gonna turn off our transparency so it's easier to see. So we'll call this person Linda Jane, and I'm gonna go over here and I'm gonna change our font. Really, you can do whatever you want. Brandon Grotesque is a classic one and one that I use a lot, so I'm gonna stick with that. I'm gonna bring my spacing in, make it a bit bigger, and maybe make it a little bit bolder as well. So we have Linda Jane there, looks nice. And then we're gonna bring that down into our kind of lower third area. All right, so we're gonna go over into our timeline and click Command D, which will make a duplicate of that layer. I'm gonna drop it below, and I'm gonna also do the same up here. All right, so this will be the title. So we could say Linda Jane is the Director of Operations. I'm not worried about capitalizing that because in my layer or my character effects over here, I'm gonna go ahead and make it all caps. We're gonna bring it down a bit so we have some contrast, and maybe, yeah, we'll leave it about that weight. So, okay, so this looks decent. I'm gonna kind of tighten up our spacing. All right, Linda Jane looks good to go. All right, so now we're just gonna create a placeholder logo. If you have a logo that you like to use, you're more than welcome, but the same principle will apply. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come up here to our shape tool. And so I wanna create a shape. I'm gonna make it, let's make it red. Yeah, it looks good. All right, and it's a circle. I'll just hold Shift and drag, and that'll create a little circle for me. So we'll just say the circle is our logo, just for the sake of this example. All right, I'm gonna take Jane and her title, move it over a little bit, and then move our circle over so everything looks nice and spaced. All right, so it looks pretty good right now. So what I'm gonna do over here real quick before we get to animating is I'm gonna rename everything for clarity's sake. So we'll call this logo, we'll call Jane name, and then we'll call her title. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna do really simple animations, and then we're gonna stick this thing out into Premiere. So I'm gonna start by animating her name. And so what I'll do is if I twirl down here, I can get to her transform effects in the name layer. And so there are a few things that I wanna animate. So let's jump ahead to maybe 1 minute or 1 second. And so if we click position and opacity, now what After Effects is doing, it's tracking those attributes. And so let's go back in time a little bit because I set these keyframes because I wanted them to be where it ends. So the position I have the name in right now is where I want it to finish. So I'll set those keyframes, then step back a little bit and make the changes that I want. So I'm gonna wanna have the name kind of slide in from the right. So I'm gonna click here. This is our height and width, and I'll drag her name out. That's probably good. And then for opacity, I'm gonna make it 0 opacity. So when that animates, and this will look a little rough to start, we'll see something like this. All right, Linda Jane's name appearing. Looks pretty great. So as you can see, it's kind of an ugly animation right now. A way that we can fix that simply by selecting all of these and clicking F9, F9, and that will create an easy ease. And so it'll make the animation a little bit more smooth. Great, that looks good. All right, so we're gonna do basically the exact same animation for her title as well. So we're gonna twirl down here, go to the transform, and we're going to track the opacity and the position just like before. We're going to scale back to this same point, and we're going to change the position a little bit to the right, and then the opacity down to 0. Again, we'll click it, Fn F9 for easy ease. That should be good. One of the other things we're going to do is we're going to take this logo, so we'll twirl this down, and we're going to want to scale this logo up. So I want it to appear, and so we'll start again at the 1 frame, and we'll adjust all the animation timeline in a minute, but just going to get these in here. So there are 2 things we can do here. If we go down to the transform like we did for the other ones, and we try to adjust the scale, the problem is it's going to scale to the center of the composition. See, this is our anchor point, which means that's where the animation is going to respond to or going to be scaling from. So instead of doing it down there in those transform tool, I'm going to flip that up, and actually within the ellipse itself has its own transform properties. And so what I'll do is I'll again say I'm going to match the scale. I want it to track that. And then I'll go back a little bit and bring this down to 0. And so that will essentially make our circle scale up. What I'll do again is hit that easy ease, and now we have the start of an animation. All right, that doesn't look too good right now because everything's exactly the same timing. So what we could do is we can stagger these things, which is a great principle in motion design. So let's bring, if you take the layer itself, I'll twirl these up real quick so it's easier to see. So if we click here on this logo layer, we can actually slide it left and right and change the timing. Something that's also good to do when you're working with lots of different layers, if you select them all and click the U button, it'll show you all the keyframes that are happening across the layer. So let's slide this back so the logo comes in first, then the first name, and then the title. This may need some tweaking, but it'll give us the idea. All right, so a little bit too choppy right now, but if we make it to where the animations start about halfway through the other animation before it, there we go, that's a little bit better. And honestly, I'm actually going to tighten these up just a little bit more. Maybe not that much. Let's see. Great. So one of the benefits of doing a motion graphics template is that you can give the graphic to someone who's working in Premiere, and they can change things like the name, like Linda Jane, to something else. They can change the description, but they can also change other things like the color of our circle, the color of the text. They can even change things like what some other variables we could add, the font or the size. And so we can give them lots of options. And so before we just export this and call it a day, we're going to give some options for them to tweak. Okay, so looking back in here, here's what we're going to do. So there are a few things that we can tweak. And so the easiest way to do this, so say we have Linda Jane's name and then her title. I would love for whoever gets this to be able to change the color, because perhaps they'll be working on a video that is kind of dark, and so they'll want there to be more contrast to the text. Right now, black on white works, but they may need to change the text to white. All right, so the way I want to do this is a little tricky, but bear with me. It'll really make sense and be really helpful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another shape. So I'll go to New and then create a shape layer. And then within this shape layer, I'm just going to draw a circle, right? All right, so within this circle, if we twirl down ellipse and find the fill, we have a color value, which really that's what we're looking for. And so what we're going to do here with our text is we're going to bring in an effect. So if you find your effects panel, effects and presets, I can search for fill. And so this is going to create a fill color, which will basically recolor whatever I put it on. So I put it on here, and then I also am going to put it on the title. And so now both of these have this effect that is going to color them red. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to twirl down my shape layer with my new ellipse until I can get to the color. And I'm also going to twirl down each of these until I can get to the effects, fill, and the color. And then same here, effects, fill, and color. So that is the parenting button. So what it means is that I can say, okay, I want this color to always take its value from something else. So if I hold it and drag it, and then I scroll up here until I get back to this one. All right, so now what I've just done is I've made this color in the title a parent of that circle that's in the center. I'm going to do it again for the other text. So I'm going to do my parent and then drag it to the color. And so now, as you can see, both of these have changed to match this color. But what's cool is if I go in and change this color, it'll automatically also change the text color because they're linked together now. And so we don't need to keep this visible. What we'll do is we'll just change this back to black. And for right now, we'll go ahead and hide it. But it's important because that means that we'll be able to give that control over to whoever's editing our graphic, and they can change the text dynamically. All right, so now that we have all these features, we're gonna go ahead and create our motion graphic template. So if you go up to your window and you're gonna click Essential Graphics, that's gonna open up the Essential Graphics pane. And this is where we actually take a composition and we make it into a motion graphic template. So if you select your composition, ours is Comp 1, and we'll name it Lower Thirds Name and Title. So I just want to give something descriptive. And then what we're going to start doing is we're going to start dragging into this little area the attributes that we want people to be able to edit. And so a few things that I know I want people to be able to edit are things like the name, because if it's not Linda Jane who's going to be on this video, we're going to want to make sure that they can change it to whatever name they need. So I'll find the source text here, and I should drag it in. And I'll do the same for our title, text, source text, drag it in. Now I'm going to label each of these so it's clear what they are. This is name. And this is title. We can also set the option for them to edit the properties. We can make it to where they can change the font, which, you know, I might as well. And then adjust the faux styles and the font size, which are just a little bit more attributes. So I'll say yes. I'll give them the freedom to edit and adjust as much as they want. So if they decide that they don't like the font I used, they can totally change it. The last thing I'm going to do is going back to this shape layer that's hidden here. I'm going to find that color and drag this color in here. So we'll call this text color. And remember, whatever they change this to will affect the text. So this all looks good to me. You can also, if you like, add a comment or group things together so that it's easy for people to figure out what they're looking at. But for us, we'll just leave it as is. So we're going to go ahead and export this motion graphics template. It'll require us to save our project first. All right, so we're going to export it. I'm just going to export it to my desktop. You can choose a folder that you want to export it to, or you can export it to an Adobe library, whichever is easier for you. So I'm going to go ahead and save it to the desktop. And we also have these features that it says it's going to warn you if there's fonts or different assets within the motion graphics template that may cause issues when they get to someone else's computer. For now, we're good, so we'll click OK. Shouldn't give us any errors. All right, and then we're done. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into Premiere and we're going to see how this actually works. All right, so here we are in Premiere, and we're going to go ahead and bring in our new template that we just created to this stock footage I found of a guy with a surfboard. So over here we have our Essential Graphics panel. That's where you're always going to find the templates. If you don't see it, go to Window, Essential Graphics, just like in After Effects. And so you're going to go to Browse, My Templates, and under Local, right now we're just seeing all these typical ones that they've made for Premiere, but we're going to want to come and find our own. So if you click down here, we're not going to see anything else. So we're going to have to actually add a folder. Click the hamburger, manage additional folders, and then we're going to add. So basically, I'm just going to navigate to my desktop and say, okay, I just need to find in my desktop if there's any motion graphics files in there. Click OK. And now if I change this to desktop, there we go. We should see this lower thirds name and title. This is another one that I've done, but we're going to use the one we just made. So lower thirds name and title. So now all I do is I just drag this into my composition. Okay, so let's see what happens when it plays. There we go. There is our name and the logo. But remember, I think that this probably isn't the most legible thing. Maybe white would be better. And actually there's a pretty harsh sun glare there, so maybe it wouldn't. But just for the sake of showing what we can do, if I click this again, then I go over to my Essential Graphics and edit, I can change the name. So I could say Joe Bob, and maybe Joe Bob is the vice president. And again, I could change the fonts if I'd like to, but the big thing here is I can change my text color. So I can change it to white. Right now that doesn't look so great. We could always add a gradient underneath it or something to blur out this image. But you get the idea is that we can change all these things to match whatever we want. I could actually use the eyedropper and I could change it to this red color. That could work. But the point is that we have a motion graphic that's able to be edited by whoever we give it to. There we go. All right, so that is how you create a motion graphics template in Adobe After Effects. It's super great to be able to hand stuff like this off to a video editor or someone else that you're working with. Even me, I use it for my own workflow, so I don't have to keep jumping back into Premiere when I want to change something. So it's really simple, but it can get really complex. So I'd encourage you to keep exploring and implementing new things. And if you like this video, I would encourage you to like and subscribe, and you'll see more stuff coming your way soon.